we know that there's bipartisan support, right, for Ukraine funding. And that is what we're saying. We're saying that there's bipartisan support. There has been. We appreciate the bipartisan support that we've seen for Ukraine from the beginning, and we believe that's going to continue. And so that is what we see, and that's how we see this moving forward.
Well, why would the president say that he made a deal if he didn't?
I'm just saying that what we're seeing currently from Congress is that there has been, right? There has been overwhelming support. That is what the president said. A majority of Congress showing overwhelming support to continue that support for Ukraine, and that's what we're going to continue to. That's what we want to continue to see.
Did the speaker provide some kind of back channel assurance that he would bring Ukraine funding up for a vote? Is that what he was referring to?
No, I don't even think the speaker needs to do back channel. He himself said yesterday that I support being able to make sure Ukraine has the weapons that they need. He said that. And we expect him to keep his word on that.
But then I guess I'm just trying to understand what the president meant when he said we just made a deal.
What I'm saying to you is that we have seen bipartisan support from Congress to continue the funding in Ukraine. That's what we expect, and that's what we want to continue to see. We've heard from Speaker McCarthy himself just yesterday saying that he wants to continue that support, and that's what we want to see moving forward.
Is it possible the president made a deal that you don't
know
about?
I'm just saying that I'm not going to go beyond what the president said. Just not going to go beyond.
Was what he said true?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president said.
So you won't say that what he said was true?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president
You're
said.
You're declining to say that what he said was true.
I just answered. Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. Governor Newsom vetoed legislation in California this weekend that would have allowed workers to collect unemployment pay while on strike. Does President Biden support unemployment pay for striking workers?
What I can say is that the president certainly supports collective bargaining. He supports that workers should be able to ask for fair pay and fair benefits. That is something that he supports. He supports certainly the right to strike. I'm not going to get into the particulars of what Governor Newsom signed. But what I can say is the president is always supporting union workers and certainly working people.
And the UAW strike is now in its third week. Is there any concern that the president's appearance on the picket line may have frustrated auto companies and prolonged discussions?
What I can say is that the president did something that was historic, right? He went to an active picket line to show his solidarity for union workers, for the men and women of UAW, and he was proud to do that. That doesn't change what the president has said many times, again, supporting collective bargaining, allowing the negotiations to continue with all parties, and making sure that they have the ability and the right to ask for fair pay and fair wage. And so that's what we believe. We think that it's good that they're continuing to have these negotiations and continue to have the conversations. And let's not forget, you have the West Coast Port, right? You have the Teamsters, right, and UPS. Collective bargaining works. So we're going to let this process move forward. Go ahead, Anita.
Thank you so much. I have a Ukraine question and then a question about the refugee cap. Just starting with Ukraine, Slovakia's elected a new leader who says they will not send one more bullet to Ukraine. They say that they have bigger problems in Ukraine. How does the White House see this splintering of NATO unity, and what is the administration going to do to bring NATO back together?
So look, and I kind of answered this question in a different variation of the question, but the president has been able to bring together our allies and partners in a historic way to support Ukraine and the brave people of Ukraine as they're fighting, certainly towards to protect their democracy. That is something that the president's going to do. NATO alliance, it's the strongest that it's ever been because of what this president's leadership has been. We're going to continue to certainly have those conversations with our partners and allies. But look, and I said this earlier, it does not help. It does not help what we see House Republicans doing. It doesn't. And that's just the reality of it. But we're going to continue to bring our partners and allies together as we support the people of Ukraine as they're fighting Russia's unjust aggression.
Okay, on the refugee cap, which was announced on Friday, the administration says set the cap yet again at 125,000 people. But the State Department says that only 51,231 refugees were admitted up to this point. So, number one, is this number including Afghans who were given humanitarian paroles? How does the administration plan to reach this target of 125,000, and what else is needed to get you to that that aspiration?
So one of the things, as you know, that we've tried to do is we've tried to improve certainly the system. I don't have specific numbers on Afghans, but you know, one of the things that we do, we implemented a number of efficiencies within state and DHS to reduce processing times. State has also approved 51 new local offices. So we have taken steps, and that's just a couple of things, to make sure that we're improving the system. And so we're going to certainly continue to do that. And so, look, we said when we first set this target that it was going to be ambitious. We knew that. We knew that 125,000 is an ambitious number, and within the progress we've made, we feel that we are better positioned to meet those goals this upcoming fiscal year, and so that's what we're going to try to do. We'll continue to go around. Go ahead, Brian.
Karine, I wanted to ask about the president's legislative priorities. I mean, given that what House Republicans are doing right now, continue to threaten to shut down the government in 45 days and hold up Ukraine funding. Is that it for what the president can do legislatively for the foreseeable future, or are there other legislative priorities where he thinks there might be a coalition with House Republicans?
I mean, look, the president, you saw what his priorities were in the budget negotiations, right? We also wanted to make sure we were protecting Medicare, protecting Social Security, right? Those were things that were incredibly important to the American people. Yes, Ukraine funding is also really important as well, which is why we are confident that we'll continue to see this bipartisan support for the Ukraine funding. And so, look, you're going to see the president meet with his cabinet in a couple of hours. We're going to talk about the importance of implementing the historic pieces of legislation that he's been able to pass. And when you think about the Inflation Reduction Act, when you think about how that's going to lower healthcare costs and what that's doing, right? The capping 35% for seniors when it comes to insulin. That's really important. When you think about beating Big Pharma and the first 10 tranches, the first 10 tranche of pharmaceutical drugs. That's where the cost is going to go down. All these things are incredibly important. We have to continue to implement these important pieces of legislation that's currently now law, and that's going to be the president's focus. And also protecting Americans, right? Protecting Americans, making sure we're keeping Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And so that's going to be the focus. You've heard us talk about the unity agenda and how important that is. Those are ways, if you want to see what the president believes he can move forward, how he can move forward with in a bipartisan way with Congress, look at the unity agenda. And so that's going to continue. He's going to continue to try to move with that as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. Two questions on the border, if I can. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says the border is too open right now. Does the president think that the border is too open?
So here's what I will say. The president, on his own, without the help of Republicans in Congress, let's not forget, he put forward a comprehensive piece of legislation to deal with immigration reform. Remember, this immigration system has been broken for decades, and it's been 3 years. That's been almost 3 years since he put forth that piece of legislation. And there are three things that he has moved forward in when it comes to his plan and looking at the border. There's enforcement, and so we've deployed additional troops and federal agents to the border and removed or returned more than 250,000 individuals since May 12th alone. That's what we've been able to do without the help of Republicans. And deterrence, we've had the largest expansion, certainly, of a pathway is in decades. And we've made clear that attempting to cross the border unlawfully will result in prompt removal, a 5-year ban on reentry, and potential criminal prosecution. And let's not forget the diplomacy that we have done with the region, including Mexico, to deal with this issue, because this is a regional issue that we're seeing with as it relates to unlawful migration.
So when the president looks at what's happening at the border, he sees a border that is effectively closed.
What I'm saying is that the president, without the help of Republicans, is doing everything that he can to deal with the border. That's what he's been able to do, while Republicans try to push forth a CR to take away the federal agents that we see at the border. That's what he's trying to do. They're trying to politicize it and make it worse. That's what Republicans are trying to do, and turn it into a political stunt. The president is actually dealing with the issue that's in front of him by getting record funding, 25,000 federal agents at the border. That is something that this president has been able to do. I'm going to move around. Okay, Karen.
A couple on COVID. Does the administration have any regrets about the rollout of this new COVID vaccine, given the reports of insurance snags and some supply issues with getting this vaccine out?
So look, this is something that we're certainly aware of and want to make sure that the system works for everybody. And that is something that you can just look at what we've done the last 3 years on this issue, right? Making sure that we make sure that every American across the country who wants a vaccine will get it. So certainly we are aware of what consumers have experienced, these unexpected issues of point of service. And so HHS is going to work with insurance, they're going to work at the issues that we're currently seeing to resolve this quickly. And so this is certainly a top priority for this administration as it relates to a comprehensive vaccination program. This has been a priority since day one of this administration.
And are you worried that if people are frustrated not being able to get their shots now, they might give up, and that could lead to a worsening situation in the fall and winter? And then just to follow up on the president's involvement in messaging.
Look, I'm not going to get too much into like the hypotheticals here. We're going to quickly, HHS is dealing with this issue. Certainly we're aware of it, and we're going to quickly address this. They're going to quickly address it. And so, we want to make sure that folks who want to get a vaccine get it. And so HHS is on it.
You talked about why the president didn't do his shot on camera like we saw him do in previous rounds, and you talked about the messaging campaign the administration would do with this new shot. Why hasn't he done anything to promote this and encourage people to get their shots, and will we see him do that in the near future?
So I don't have anything to lay out on what else the president's going to do as it relates to the new boosters for COVID. What I can say is there are secretaries or an administrative official across the federal government here for the White House that are indeed very much involved in making sure that they get the word out there. Right? We saw just the other day, we saw the second gentleman get involved and show how his process of getting his shot, and we'll see that from others across the administration. Look, we are in a different time and a different place with COVID. Clearly, we're all sitting here. Most of us are assuming many of us have gotten our COVID shots. And so that is important to also note that we are in a different place, and we are in a different place because of what this president has been able to do, because he took a comprehensive approach, because he wanted to make sure that Americans across the country were able to get this COVID vaccine, and not just that, other treatments to deal with COVID. So you've seen his commitment to this, and we see how it looks like now that we're coming out of this pandemic. Just don't have anything to share on his further involvement with the president on this.
Karine, nothing is asked on disability.
Thank you, Karine. Would President Biden ever try to get out of a meeting by pulling a fire alarm?
Are you talking about something specifically?
A Democratic member of Congress pulled a fire alarm around a series of votes. No fire. Is that appropriate?
What I can tell you is I have not spoken to the president about this. And so just not going to comment. I will leave it up to, I know there's a House process moving forward right now. I'll leave it to the House.
Okay. Since President Biden is so pro-union, is he okay with 75,000 healthcare workers possibly walking off the job this week?
What I can tell you is that, and I've said this many times already this morning, the president believes all workers, including healthcare workers and those that make their work possible, they deserve fair pay. And they deserve a fair benefit. That's what the president believes. He believes that collective bargaining works. That is, we've seen that play out in the past even couple of months. We think about the Teamsters. You think about the Teamsters and the UPS. You think about the West Coast ports, right? We see that play out. And so it is important that we see that continue. And I'll have to say, like the Treasury Department laid out recently a major report that unions and collective bargaining are good for the overall economy and help raise wages for everybody, whether they are a union member or not. And I think that matters.
Would you consider joining them on the picket line if they strike?
Look, I don't have anything else to share on the president's schedule. What I can say is that when we see this type of collective bargaining, when we see this type of, the report that I just laid out, when unions and unions do collective bargaining, it actually helps our economy overall, and it raises wages, and I think that's important for all, not just union members, also non-union members.
And a couple days ago, looters were terrorizing businesses in Philadelphia. What is the White House doing about that?
So obviously, any coordinated theft and vandalism that occurred in Philadelphia is destructive and simply unacceptable. That's what we say. We've always said that. Any type of vandalism, any type of violence, we certainly denounce that from here. The acts of these individuals harmed local businesses, as we saw in the communities that depend on them. But I also want to be clear, because the police commissioner in Philadelphia did say, and he said this on the record, that looting was the act of opportunists taking advantage of an unrelated protest. But obviously, and we have been very consistent here when it comes to any sort of vandalism, certainly looting or any type of violence. We are going to simply condemn that, and it is unacceptable.
Ms. Karine, about disability, there's no seat here in this room for disabled journalists.
Can you tell us if the president has had any one-on-one conversations with Leader McCarthy about Ukraine funding in the past 2 weeks?
I don't have any conversations to read out. As you know, the president very often keeps in touch with House and Senate members. That is something that he does on a regular basis. As far as a specific conversation, I just don't have anything to read out. Okay.
So it's possible the president and the speaker spoke.
I just don't have anything to confirm. I really don't. As I said, the president regularly has conversations with members of Congress. I don't have any specific conversation to read out.
Can we make a request that between now and the next briefing, perhaps we could ask the president what deal he was referring to in his comments yesterday, so we can have a better idea? Because I think this will continue to have oxygen around it until we have clarity about, is this a new deal? Is he referring to the budget top line?
I appreciate the question. What I can say for sure is that what we believe as it relates to Ukraine is that there has been continues to be bipartisan support from Republicans and Democrats in Congress.
It's not responsive to whether there is a deal.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying, speaking to this particular kind of issue, broader issue, right? We believe that continues to be bipartisan support. We think that's incredibly important. Speaker McCarthy has spoken to this, and that's what we want to see. We want to see continued support for the people of Ukraine as they bravely fight against Russia's aggression.
On another matter, the president's son will be going to a court appearance tomorrow. We know previously that was believed to have been something that would resolve the case. A lot has transpired in between. Will this have any impact on the president's schedule tomorrow, or how he will be getting information about that? I recognize it's a personal matter, but will that court appearance have any impact on the president's schedule?
I will continue to say it's a personal matter. Just not going to get into it from here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you tomorrow, Karine.
Thank you, President.